Billy Back. And only one that plays out of the whole crowd there is Billy Back and Diamond.
The Ohio Players were legendary for their funky music style and daring album covers. But for years, nobody really knew the secrets they hid. As their career grew, things slowly started to shift in a negative way. Some members started to here and there.
Like doing those 4 shows or whatever, just during the skin tight period, whatever. I'm trying to wake up, okay? He comes along, says, "Here, Beck," sticks it up my nose. I've never seen it coming, and that does start an addiction.
Then came an even darker chapter in their career. The murder talks that followed their Love Rollercoaster track.
A woman got stabbed in the studio, and we would play that over and over again, and it was conclusive evidence.
But everything went off the roof when some members started getting sick and passing away, one after the other. So what really went down? Let's dive in. The Ohio Players actually started out as the Ohio Untouchables, a bunch of young, hungry musicians led by Robert Ward, a powerful blues guitarist from Georgia. The lineup included Marshall Jones, Clarence Satchel, and Pee Wee Middlebrooks, who were all talented players in their own right. Their music was pure soul and energy, the kind that made people drive miles just to catch a show. They were the real deal. Everybody wanted to play like them, but it took time, work, and a lot of grind to get anywhere close.
Us to the clubs, the Ohio Untouchables were playing. Hey man, that was...
Things were going well until their leader, Robert Ward, started acting unpredictable. Sometimes he'd walk off the stage mid-performance, leaving the rest of the band hanging. After a huge argument between Ward and Marshall Jones, the group finally split. But the remaining members made a promise to themselves. They would never be backup musicians again.
There's only 3 licks passed. I hit him, he hit me, and I hit the ground. And that was the end of that.
They replaced Ward with a young guitarist named Sugarfoot Bonner. Sugarfoot brought a whole new vibe. He was the oldest of 14 kids, never went to high school, but he taught himself guitar and had a deep love for blues and jazz. That passion helped shape the band's new direction.
You've got to transition with the times, and that's what you've done with the Ohio Players. You've kind of revamped the Ohio Players a little bit.
I'm never going to change. I'm always be me.
They wanted a fresh sound, something big, different, and exciting. They mixed R&B with a flashier, more energetic style. They practiced non-stop music, wasn't just work, it was who they were. By 1967, the band reinvented itself and took on a new name, the Ohio Players. They were smooth, stylish, confident, and they carried themselves like stars. In 1968, they dropped their first major album, Observations in Time, under Capitol Records, even though it didn't sell well. Just as soon as Capitol realized, they dropped them. But the band didn't stop. They kept pushing. Their real breakthrough came in the early 1970s when they brought in a teenage prodigy named Juni Morrison. He helped guide them into a new world, funk. At that time, funk was exploding everywhere, and with Juni on board, the Ohio Players' sound got harder, sharper, and more aggressive. In 1971, they signed with Westbound Records. This label was the same that worked with George Clinton, and finally, things started clicking for them. Their first single, Pain, blew up. The raw vocals, the bold horns, and the emotional punch of the lyrics made the song unforgettable.
Pain is in my heart.
The album cover changed everything. It featured Pat Evans, a bold, bald-headed model who became a cultural icon overnight. By 1972, the Ohio Players were blowing up after Pain. They released Pleasure and Ecstasy, each with daring covers and powerful funk. But with the success came problems. In 1974, drummer Greg Webster left because of health issues, and James "Diamond" Williams replaced him. Soon after, their lead singer Juni Morrison went solo, so Billy Beck stepped in on keyboards and fit perfectly. With this new lineup, the band got even stronger and released 17 top 40 hits.
I enjoy playing it every night now. It's a great song.
Did someone play Juni's role of the granny?
Billy Beck, who replaced Walter Morrison.
We have Mr. Marshall Jones, Capricorn. And we have Pee Wee standing next to him, the Leo, Sir Ralph Middlebrooks. Mr. Marvin Pierce, better known as Merv, Cancer. Yeah. Jim Diamond next to him, that's his name.
Clarence Satch Satchel held everything together. He managed the look, the moves, and the direction of the group. But behind the fame, things started to break down. Personal issues, disagreements, and pressure slowly pulled the band apart. Then came one of their biggest mysteries, the story behind their 1975 hit Love Rollercoaster. It was a mix of big creativity and even bigger rumors. The Ohio Players weren't the type of group that followed strict rules. They liked to vibe, experiment, and just let the music happen. Sugarfoot Bonner had this thing where everything he said naturally started to rhyme. It made him feel a little wild sometimes, but that's how he came up with these bold, playful lyrics. Some were so wild they had to tone them down for radio. Satch also had a habit of tossing out one word, like fire, honey, or roller coaster, and the whole band would build a full song around it. They believed in keeping things simple, because simple ideas often make the best music. And that's exactly how Love Rollercoaster was born. The song is basically about life's ups and downs. They added a little grown-up humor too, making it sound flirty and exciting. The groove and the simple lyrics made the song instantly memorable, but what really boosted the song's legend was a rumor that spread like wildfire. People noticed a high-pitched scream in the background of the track, and suddenly, stories started popping up saying a woman was murdered in the studio while they were recording. Some said the scream came from a Playboy model named Esther Corday, who was on the cover of the Honey album. One rumor said she argued with someone from the band outside the studio and was killed, and somehow her scream got recorded. Another version said a studio worker murdered her and sneaked the scream into the track. Others even said she wasn't murdered at all, but died after falling off an actual roller coaster, and that scream ended up on the record. But it gets even stranger. One rumor claims Esther was badly burned during the photo shoot for the Honey album cover. The story says the honey on her skin got so hot under the studio lights that it melted into her skin and left her scarred, angry, and in pain. She supposedly hunted down the studio where the band was recording and screamed into the microphone to mess up their session. It's a wild story, but even in this version, she lived. Another spooky rumor said the scream came from a ghost. According to that tale, a had been murdered near the studio, and her spirit haunted the building. People swore the ghost scream was caught on the recording. Fans would play the song again and again, convinced they had found proof of a real crime. The band, though, thought the rumors were hilarious. Sugarfoot Bonner even joked that if any of it were true, he'd be in prison already. So what's the real story? The scream wasn't from a murder, a ghost, or anything dramatic. It was just a band member making a sound effect, pretending to scream like someone riding a roller coaster. That's it. The rumor was fake, but honestly, it helped sell tons of records. The band didn't rush to shut it down, because the mystery just made the song even more popular.
It was about coming up with an idea where we could sell albums, where we could get notoriety within the stores and on the shelves.
And speaking of attention, the Ohio Players knew exactly how to grab it with their album covers. Their most famous one was Honey, featuring model Esther Corday covered in golden honey. The image was bold and provocative for the time. Some people thought it was beautiful and creative, while others said it was too much. The story behind that cover is just as wild as the picture. Esther was lying on a sheet of plexiglass while real honey was poured all over her. Because of the hot studio lights, the honey turned thick and sticky and basically glued her to the plexiglass. They had to use warm water and a lot of patience to free her. It took hours to clean up, but the final image became iconic.
We were in the studio lights so long, she became glued to the plexiglass. So we had to take warm water and pour over her.
That cover played a huge role in the Ohio Players' success. Honey sold over 1 million copies and earned them their second platinum album. They were selling out massive venues like Madison Square Garden and the Superdome. At that moment, they were at the absolute top. For Dayton, Ohio, the band became more than just musicians. They were hometown heroes. Dayton wasn't Hollywood or New York, but the Ohio Players made it feel like a cultural hotspot. People were proud, and their music became part of the city's identity. But while their rise was incredible, their fall came just as fast. The fans loved them so much that the band was always on the road. By the early 1970s, they were performing about 200 shows a year. That kind of schedule comes with a cost. Behind the scenes, things were getting messy. Life on tour brought two big problems: burnout and
We were in the, like doing those 4 shows or whatever, just during the skin tight period, whatever time. I'm trying to wake up. Okay, he comes along, says, "Here, Beck," sticks it up my nose. I've never seen it coming. That does start an addiction.
At first, everything seemed fine. They were making money, selling out shows, and enjoying the fame. But little by little, rehearsals got sloppy. The excitement faded, and when they got back from tours, it was easy to see that something was wrong. Everyone in the group had started using the same
stabbed on a roller coaster. That's what I've heard this. You know, we don't do things like that. I'm not a killer, I'm a lover.
That is not true, although it did help sell a lot of records.
It began as a quick fix, something to help them stay awake and full of energy for back-to-back shows. Someone offered a little hit, and it didn't seem dangerous at the time, but after a while, the took over their lives. Shockingly, some record executives actually encouraged the band to use They wanted the Ohio Players to record all day and perform all night, and they didn't care at all about the band's health. Billy Beck later said the executives only cared about money. That was the moment he realized things were going to get bad. As became a bigger part of their lives, the band's work ethic started falling apart. They were living big, enjoying the fame, but trouble wasn't far behind. Billy knew things were slipping when he saw Satch, Sugarfoot, and others surrounded by police one day. Then Marvin Pierce drove up and said something crazy. "Satch, your is on your car."
Marvin pulls up and he says, "Satch got cocaine on it." I said, "What?" I said, "How much?" "About 3 or 4 ounces." Oh, God. That was huge.
That one moment showed just how messy things had become behind the scenes. Luckily, none of the guys ended up in jail, and the band kept moving. They continued touring and released albums like Angel and Contradiction, both of which became big hits and made the top 10 songs like Body Vibes and Hoochie Coo kept fans dancing. The story behind Hoochie Coo is actually funny. The original version was 25 to 30 minutes long. They just cut it down to the best parts. When it came time to name the track, Satch tossed out the title, Hoochie Coo, and everyone agreed. The band never acted like they were chasing hits. They were just having fun making music. But even with all the good things happening, trouble still found its way to them. Marshall Jones, the band's treasurer, got a call from an IRS investigator. The man told him, "You can avoid me, but you can't evade me." It turned out someone in the band had been writing unauthorized checks using money that wasn't reported. They had been spending cash on penthouses, limos, and other luxuries they didn't even need. And that person was none other than Satch. When Marshall confronted Satch, he was heartbroken. He asked why he hadn't told anyone. Satch tried to calm him down and even offered to pay for his house, but it was too late. Since Marshall filed taxes jointly with his wife, the IRS came after him too. They threatened to take his house, his car, and everything that belonged to him. One night, Marshall Jones called Satch's wife and told her the band was planning to kick Satch out completely. It wasn't just an argument, they wanted him gone.
All I had worked for and all that I had accomplished, and seeing it go up in smoke with a for sale sign in my yard and sitting there with my wife, I broke down and cried.
Satch was eventually fired from the group, and that's when everything started collapsing. The IRS came after the band for unpaid taxes. Mercury Records hadn't taken taxes out of their royalty checks, so each member was held responsible for money they didn't report. The financial mess tore their lives apart. Satch lost everything: his house, his cars, his savings. He and his wife watched their entire life fall apart overnight. He said he cried like a baby when reality hit him. The pain stayed with him for the rest of his life. Other members went through the same thing. One after another, the IRS came for them. Even though they had fame and big hits, poor financial planning and betrayal inside the group cost them everything, including their lives. For instance, Satch. Of course, he was one of the original members of the group. He could play different instruments, but people mostly knew him for his saxophone. He also helped write some of their biggest songs. In 1995, Clarence died suddenly at 55 from a brain aneurysm. That's when a blood vessel in the brain bursts without warning. His death shocked everyone. Clarence was a big creative force in the band, and losing him meant losing a big part of their sound. Then, Ralph Pewee Middlebrooks played the trumpet. His sharp, bright notes gave the band that bold, funky flavor. Just 2 years after Clarence passed, Ralph also died at 58 after battling cancer. Losing him was another heavy blow, especially at a time when the band was already struggling to stay in the spotlight. Also, Sugarfoot. Leroy Sugarfoot Bonner was the heart and soul of the Ohio Players. His voice was instantly recognizable, and his guitar skills were unmatched. Fans loved his energy, the way he poured everything into every performance. But life wasn't kind to him. After all the years of giving his all to the music, Sugarfoot passed away in 2013 at age 69 after battling cancer. His death was a huge loss, not just to the band, but to everyone who loved funk music. People who grew up listening to hits like Fire and Love Rollercoaster felt like they had lost a friend. Leroy's voice and energy were a huge part of what made the Ohio Players stand out. Then there was Walter "Junie" Morrison, the true musical genius. He was a keyboardist and arranger during the early years. Junie had a wild, creative mind, and his ideas helped shape albums like Ecstasy. Even though he left before the band reached its biggest success, his influence was still felt for years. In 2017, Junie died at 62, and many fans and musicians mourned him because they knew how much he helped shape the funk sound. He wasn't always in the spotlight, but his fingerprints were all over their music. Greg Webster, the band's original drummer, was another important piece of the puzzle. As a founding member, he helped set the rhythm and heartbeat of their early music.
My name is Greg Webster. I was the original drummer and one of the original members of the Ohio Players. We started our group back in 1964.
Greg passed away in 2022 at the age of 84. His death felt like the end of an era for many fans, like a whole chapter in music history had finally closed. Other members also passed away over the years. Guitarist Robert Ward died in 2008, and drummer Cornelius Johnson in 2009. They were part of the group's early sound, and even though many of these guys left the band long before they died, their work stayed woven into the Ohio Players' story. Each time another member passed, it felt like another piece of the group's legacy faded. Even with all their influence on funk and R&B, the Ohio Players still don't always get the recognition they deserve. Some surviving members have even said they feel forgotten by the industry and by fans. It's tough because they were trailblazers. They inspired so many artists, even if people don't always give them their flowers. The surviving bandmates carry the weight of everything the group built, along with the pain of losing so many of their brothers. It's not easy, especially when the world moves on so fast. Still, the Ohio Players gave us music that makes people dance, sing, and feel good, even to this day. And while many of the key members are gone, their energy lives on through the songs. Fans and new musicians can keep honoring them simply by keeping the music alive.